Hey, what's up, everyone? This is David Greenspan, and you are listening to Season 2 of the Mindshare Podcast, a proud member of the Industry Syndicate Media Network. Additional podcasts are available at industrysyndicate.com and mindshare101.com. This week's episode is sponsored by Kits Keep in Touch Systems. This is episode 63. Recently named one of the top 50 women in Canadian real estate by Rep Magazine, she has earned a reputation for being a leader, an educator, and an active contributor, both as a brokerage owner and as a real estate lifestyle entrepreneur expert. Born into the real estate industry, she began her career 20 plus years ago working in her family business. On a mission to learn, she took on many roles within the organization before serving as executive vice president. From deal processing to human resources to management to founder of the company's exclusive real estate academy, she helped to grow the company from one location and 18 sales representatives to 10 locations and over 1,000 sales representatives. Her experience with brokerage business and professional development spans 2 decades of market changes and industry evolutions, offering her unique perspectives and insight into the landscape of brokerage business in Canada. As a broker-owner of Royal LePage Connect Realty, she passionately shares her insights and expertise with her growing team of 300 sales representatives and 20-plus employees across 6 locations in 3 unique markets. And her passion for helping real estate professionals goes well beyond her daily brokerage activities. She is the host of the Lifestyle Entrepreneur Podcast, a public speaker, and a published author in Canadian real estate publications as well as Forbes magazine. And she is passionate about helping people find ways to not only create their business around a life they love, but to learn to enjoy the freedom and flexibility that a career in real estate provides. Joining me on the Mindshare Podcast today is a very special guest and my longtime friend, Michelle Risi. Welcome to the show, Michelle.
Hey guys.
How
Who wrote
is it
that bio
going?
anyways?
Oh my God! You know what? I love it. I was reading through that. I'm like, and it just goes on. And I love seeing it. I think there's one thing that was missed out there. I think. And that's the whole fact that you're a contributor to Forbes magazine as well.
I am.
Right? So we've got to get
Yeah,
that bio
you're right.
updated
We
now.
got to
Just
get
add
that
something else
updated.
on there.
Yeah, exactly.
I love seeing it though.
Too funny.
It's wicked to see the growth and the evolution of, sort of what you've done with the business, with the brokerages, and then even your personal brand. Like again, as a friend, love watching this stuff. It's so cool.
Thank you. Well, when I hear 2 decades, I was like, oh my God. I took a big gulp. You're right. Oh my goodness.
It's crazy how fast time flies, eh?
Yeah, very.
It's unreal.
Very.
But speaking of that though, you have, and I have, we've been in the business a long time. What are some of these, and I know that this is kind of a very either pointed or random question, but what are some of these big changes that we've seen in the industry, let's say over these past kind of 2 decades? And I mean, this will dovetail us into some cool parts of the convo.
Yeah.
We've seen it change. We've seen it evolve.
Huge. I mean, people laugh when I say I was in the industry, working in the brokerage business when Treb Vision first came out, like the very first computer, and Treb launched their MLS system online. I was working at a reception desk when we had to tear the daily sheets and hole punch them and put them in a binder. Or the huge Bowers books that the agents would walk away with and steal or rip the pages out of. So it's been really cool to see the changes that the industry's gone through. Of course, I think in the last 10 years, it's rapidly changed. I think the landscape has changed enormously with, not so much how we do the business, but even what the role of the realtor is.
Mm-hmm.
And I noticed, I mean, you mentioned a bit about the Real Estate Academy. The Real Estate Academy was really founded because I was sitting around a table with brand new agents and we were just talking about, how we could support their business. And they posed a question and I looked at them and went, well, didn't you do that in licensing? And they went, no. I'm like, oh. So do you know how to write a clause? No, we didn't have to do that in our exams. I was like, what? And so the academy really was born out of a need based on what was being taken out of licensing programs. And so I think the biggest change that I've seen is really in the role of the realtor and even the personality types that come into the business. I think if we go back to the 80s, typically real estate drew in the sales, that natural salesperson personality, like, don't get me sitting at a desk, don't ask me to do admin work, that's not my forte, I want to be out there with people. And I've seen a huge shift in that with more and more people that are more comfortable administratively working with paperwork and processes less than people. And so that's been a huge change as well.
Yeah, it's interesting. I totally remember the black and white MLS tear sheets. I remember people running into the offices quickly to get that stuff.
Yeah.
And naturally, like, we're going to see evolution. We're going to see technology evolve. And I mean, that's the world we live in today. Like, when we look at, the fact that we've lived through like a whole bunch of different decades and we've seen all these different changes in technology and, from the 8-tracks and the Walkmans to the CD players. And it was like, we had a Discman. It was so cool.
God,
now
I know.
Like,
I showed my kids a photo of the little Walkmans and they were like, what is that?
Right? Like, I mean, you even think about not for anything, like an iPod these days, that's old school, right?
Yeah.
Everything now you listen to on your smartphone, you can get it on any app you want to.
Eh?
So listen, but it's cool though, because again, that's technology evolving, but there's some, I guess, important points there where you bring up like why the Real Estate Academy was there and the fact that people were missing out on some of that education, some of that learning. You think about the business today. Yes, there's access to technology. Yes, there's some other tools. But from a lot of those old school fundamentals that is still the stuff that works in today's world.
Absolutely.
Like, I know I was on my way down to record today, and I was on the phone making calls. That is not going to go away in this business.
Well, it shouldn't go away. I think that's probably the better phrasing for it, because I know that when we look at it's funny that you brought up Forbes, but I got the notification that one of the questions that they asked us to contribute to was disruptive technology,
right,
and what that looks like from a realtor's perspective. And if we take a look at that, disruptive technology, it's landed us in a bit of an identity crisis. Like, who are we? What is our role? What should we be doing? And so there is, the principles don't change. The fundamentals don't change. The old school, traditional, whatever word, I like to use the word proven instead of, proven, unproven instead of traditional, non-traditional, but because traditional just makes it sound so old, right?
Yeah, okay, fair.
They're proven
I guess so does old school, right? Like saying old school
means
old.
Exactly. Okay. And so, I can see where people's reactions.
Politically correct.
Proven, yeah. Well, they're proven strategies, right? They're proven tactics, proven ways of communicating with people. And so if we have a look at that proven, unproven, or traditional and not, we started off fully traditional. Disruptive technology comes in, the ability now to have all these online tools that are supposed to make our lives easier come in, and now the camp has swayed and everyone seems to be leaning, the majority seems to be leaning then on, let's do it all online. Let's make it as easy as possible. Let's not get face-to-face with people. Let's just do everything via text or on our phones or through digital signatures. And I think what has to happen is that we have to come back to more of an equilibrium and understand that the fundamental principles don't change, the tactics and how we deliver them change. And so what should our role be as professionals? Should we avoid these phone calls and these face-to-face opportunities? Should we allow technology to take us over completely? Because it can, if we allow it, very easily. Nobody's disputing the fact that I can sit from the comfort of my own home in my pajamas and do my business.
Well, that's what I say to everybody about voice marketing and podcasting, and why they should use it. It's so much easier than video for people to market their business. But
well, I'm totally on that one. When you and I had the conversation about video, I was like, yeah, there's something about podcasts though. Like, I don't have to have my makeup on. My hair doesn't have to be done.
Right. But hold on. Okay. And I love where this is going. So I'm going to rewind for a moment because I got a kind of an umbrella question then to ask you, which is going to take us down this road through the tech and through remaining relevant and all that other stuff. You've got the podcast, The Lifestyle Entrepreneur.
Yes.
Go into your website. There's a lot of that comes through around the Lifestyle Entrepreneur. I know that's your brand. What is a lifestyle entrepreneur? Just for everybody watching, listening, and tuning into this
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah. You know what? It's a question I get asked often because it's not a term we hear a lot in
Right.
real estate. And really the idea of lifestyle entrepreneurship for realtors sort of came to me one night. I was just kind of sitting there really just reflecting on the identity crisis that we have in our industry.
What do
Hey,
you mean by that?
well, I mean, I'm the first to admit I can have an identity crisis on a daily basis. Right? Who am I today? Who do I want to be today?
You are Michelle with us right now, right?
Right. Yes. No, I'm here with you. I'm here with you. But I think as professionals, just in the work that I get to do with realtors, the conversations that we seem to be having is really around what is my role? Is my role the traditional realtor, where I'm doing everything face to face? Is my role somebody that, can I have an identity of being a part-time realtor? I mean, so there's a lot of conversation around identity. And so it dawned on me when I ask realtors, well, what's the number one reason that drew you to this business? Like, why did you decide to get into real estate? Financial profit is never at the top of the list. It's important, people mention it, but it's always freedom and flexibility.
Freedom and flexibility is the number one reason people get in.
And typically, if you look at the demographics of people getting into real estate, it's up until this point, we really have not seen a huge emergence of people out of high school saying they want to become realtors. It's typically been a second, third career path. And so when people are at that age and stage of their life and they're making those huge changes, leaving a corporate job, coming into, entrepreneurship, they're doing so because it's lifestyle driven. I have young kids. I want to spend more time with my kids. I have aging parents. I need to take care of them. I have another job and this is my passion and I really want to be able to pursue it. So it's very much lifestyle driven. And so when we take a look at that, and I started looking at, okay, so what's really missing then? What's missing from the dialogue that we're having with real estate professionals? And it comes down to identity. And so taking what the definition is that we know at mainstream for lifestyle entrepreneurship, if you Google what is a lifestyle entrepreneur, they're going to paint the picture of that laptop lifestyle, somebody who is working remotely from an island and running an online business selling products. That is the definition. But when you keep reading and you start doing the research, you realize that the essence of lifestyle entrepreneurship is lifestyle. It's lifestyle driven. It's profit's important, but it's not profit first. It's how much do I need to make to support the lifestyle that I want? Is it, to be able to put my kids in private school, or get them cars when they're of driving age, or travel 4 times a year? Like, what is the lifestyle that you're after? And so that's sort of where I started adopting then the term lifestyle entrepreneur, because I feel as though when I have that framework to be able to speak with my realtors, and that's the lens that we can view their business from, things just become so much clearer. Now when we're talking about what does your day look like and your schedule look like, there's more opportunity to create harmony, as opposed to a disconnect between I'm a mom and I'm a professional. I'm a parent, or I'm a caregiver and a professional. There doesn't have to be a disconnect. There's a nice blending and weaving of this is who we are, and that's not going to change. And so how do we adapt ourselves to create a business around a life that we really want? And so that's kind of just how that term was born.
No, I love it. And I know when we were speaking a bunch about it yesterday, and again, just following your content through it, I really love where it goes, because it's so true. And you just hit on something that I don't know if it's surprising, but it might be the first time I'm kind of hearing it that way, where you said that a lot of the kids that are getting out of the high schools and post-secondary education, it's not real estate that they're looking to get into. And
not
so
typically.
Well, this is the thing, right?
Yeah.
And I would agree, especially here in Toronto, with, the amount of realtors we have in the business. We're getting a lot of folks that come in, and this is a second job, or they were coming from another industry. And it's not that you're necessarily, and it's not that we're not seeing, call it the millennials getting into the biz, or that we're not seeing
a lot more of them. It's fabulous.
Definitely, right?
Yeah.
Now there's something to that around what are your goals? What are you trying to achieve? Where are you going with it? And this it wraps right back around the technology. How are you embracing it? And then what are you doing to almost not, just isolate yourself with it? Mm-hmm. But then when we look at the folks that, yes, coming in from a second job, maybe a mom, maybe a dad, maybe a doctor, maybe an engineer, like whatever
We're
you were
seeing
doing,
tons. Yeah.
they get in. And it's so that they've got the flexibility, as you said, for their business. It's not
Mhm.
necessarily just about the money,
No, no,
right?
it's not. Like I said, when I ask realtors, it's in their top three, certainly.
Yeah.
But that's not that magnet that's drawing them to the industry. It's entrepreneurship is about being your own boss. Obviously, when you're creating a business, you want it to be profitable. Nobody gets into business to create a failing business. That's not what we do. But so we know that's already kind of implied that you want to create something profitable, but it's what does profitable look like? What benchmark are we using to determine whether or not we're successful or not? Is it that I want to make $1 million? Why? Is a
Okay, tell
million?
me about that. We talked about that. Sorry, tell me about
Yeah,
that one
that's okay.
because we talked about that one where we said like, where do they start? And we started talking around the goals and how do you really plan out how you're doing things.
Yeah.
We had a good one on that yesterday. Like, what do they need to know? You know what they want. You just said that, right?
Well, I think anytime you come into starting a business or a project, if you're working for somebody, I'm assuming it's mostly entrepreneurs and realtors that are listening, but even if you're not, anytime you go into something new to build or create something, you're asking yourself, what do I want to get out of it? Like, what are my goals? What are my benchmarks? What are my measurables? So that's all kind of implied in terms of looking at how do you structure a business. But when I'm sitting down with realtors, one of the first questions that I think anybody asks is, well, what's your income goal? What is it that you want to make?
Mm-hmm.
And it seems to be an automatic, let me throw out an arbitrary number. And nobody's really giving thought to what does that number mean? Why? Like, why are you choosing 500,000? Why are you choosing top 1% in Canada as your goal? So when you start reframing it to look at, so what lifestyle do you want? What is it that you want to get out of this business? Do you want this to be part-time? Is this going to be your full-time thing? What do you want to do with the time freedom? Because I think that's a huge value add with entrepreneurship that many people don't really get a chance to enjoy. Like, going back to why do people come into the business for freedom and flexibility? There's just far too few people that are actually enjoying it. And they're waiting until they're almost at retirement age to do that. And I'm suggesting if you can look at your business a little bit differently from the lens of a lifestyle entrepreneur, can you not structure your days? Can you not structure your business around that lifestyle? Don't wait until you're 65, 70, 80 to start enjoying that time freedom. And so, even when you're bringing it back to that income goal, how much do you need to support the lifestyle that you want to live? It might be 500,000, but unless you have that link or tie to what that actually means for you, you're lacking the purpose. And we all know in a business where we are reactive, when we have to self-motivate and self-start, that purpose piece is huge because it's what's going to keep you connected to what you're doing. And we know that in business, we're not going to love everything that we do. You can ask realtors today, what is the one thing that they hate the most, and what's going to be their answer? Prospecting.
Yeah.
Okay. But guess what? That is the lifeline of your business. So how do you keep yourself engaged? Can we just reframe the way we look at things so that it's more purpose driven? And so that's kind of where you go with the income goal. It might be 500,000. It might be to be top 1%, but know your why behind it. Why? What picture is that going to paint? What is it going to afford you to be able to do in your life?
Okay, so then that's kind of the idea of sort of even to reword that is going, know more about yourself,
Yes.
what you ultimately want.
Yeah.
Right. So, okay. If I said, because for anybody listening or watching right now might be going, okay, well, so how do I figure that out? Right. And if I say to you, I mean, I know what my lifetime goals are.
Mm-hmm.
I know, and they're ever changing, right? There's always that
Sure.
that moment in a year where you do your review and you really do your planning and you start to look and go,
If
do I
you're that
want
organized, you do that.
I believe you should be.
Yeah.
Listen, this is part of the one-to-one coaching that we do with the Mindshare stuff,
Yeah.
where it's really, and because it's very similar, right? It's what do you ultimately want, right? What are you trying to get to? And it's that idea around lifestyle, and that's why what we do is we'll focus on what is your realistic time.
Mm-hmm.
And before you plan out your predictable days and going, okay, I'm going to do my prospecting at this time, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, I'm going to say my realistic time. My realistic time is that at 6 p.m. tonight, I'm going to be on the ice with the boys coaching the team.
Yep.
Right? Which realistically means that at 5 p.m. I'm leaving the office so I can get to the rink by 5:30 to give Joshua enough time to get ready so I can yip yap with some of the parents before I get on the ice,
Mm-hmm.
do my practice, and then he's got to get undressed and we got to get out of the rink and get home. Travel time, hockey time. That's realistic time. I'm going to do that time, and I'm not going to be working during that time.
But you'd be surprised when you sit down with new entrepreneurs, new realtors, and they're designing this ideal work week, that they don't take into account the actual true nature of time. And so that's why I coach from the perspective of, you want to create, I think it's important to have an ideal week.
Yep.
I don't think in the real estate industry we can be structured and scheduled the way you can in the corporate life.
Yep.
But it's important to kind of map out, what are your 4 main activities, like things that you have to be doing or engaging in to keep your business going. When ideally would you like to do those in your day? And start by plotting the non-negotiables and working around it. Because if this is really a lifestyle driven business and you come into the business because you want to spend more time with your family, then start time blocking those non-negotiables so that you are carving out time for those things that matter and then building everything else in around it.
Right.
I mean, there's enough time in the day to do stuff. It's just being strategic and being clear about what it is that has to look like for you. And it's not going to be the same for everybody.
Oh, no, totally. I mean, this is where I spent an entire hour yesterday on this in the first session of the My Chair Challenge, going through essentially time management. And this entire week is going to be spent on the focus of time management. I mean, where are you tracking your time? Are you using a calendar? Are you using a CRM? Is everything on your phone? Do you write it down in a notebook, right? Where do you track? Figure out where you actually track it, and then dedicate yourself to actually using that tool so that you can have more time, because you just said it. We all have time.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of how we structure that time.
Yeah.
And I think
you make time for the things that are important for you. So if you don't ever declare that this is important, then you're always going to allow other things in to fill your schedule. And if you go if we go back to time freedom, in order to get back more time, you got to understand where you're actually spending your time first, because chances are we engage in a lot of time wasting behavior. Tons. I don't know if you've ever used your screen. Exactly, the screen time, right? So it's like, I used what? I was on there, what? Okay, but I use my phone a lot as a computer. Like I literally, it is my mobile computer.
There are literally days though, like I'll be looking at Facebook or even checking emails and be like, this is not what, like out loud to myself, this is not what you were supposed to be doing right now.
No,
just
no.
X,
well, there's that dopamine. It's the dopamine fix that we're all addicted to, right? So we
which
turn
can be a
to
totally
it because
downfall too sometimes.
It is. So yeah, to get back time freedom, you got to understand first where you're spending your time. And if you don't ever declare what's important to you, then you're always going to allow other things to come in and take the space that should be devoted to the things that matter.
Right. So it's okay. So the question being then, what do we need to know about ourselves? It's almost, what is it that's ultimately important to you in life? Mark that down. And again, I'm going to use hockey as an example.
Yeah.
I love watching the Leafs. I play my own hockey. Joshua's incredibly active with hockey. He's got baseball. Leah's got dance. Jen's got her stuff. So there's, family time, which is incredibly important. You've got to mark that stuff down, put that in, and understand, what does your lifestyle look like?
Yeah.
What do you ultimately want to achieve? And once you have that, you can now go for those non-negotiables as well when it comes to work that says, these are the things we need to do to be able to get there.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right?
And it's not going to be cookie cutter. It's not going to always turn out that way. But again, it's just that act of declaring that this is what's important to me. These are the things that I know I need to do to create a profitable business. This is what I know I need to do to feel happy and fulfilled, because I think that's a huge piece that we tend to forget when we're building a business, is that we all have. So going back to knowing ourselves, I like to use disc profiling with my agents, and so I don't use it in the same way. I know Keller Williams uses it a lot, my understanding is and how they use it is a little bit different than how I use it. I use it as a tool of first understanding who we are, what are our strengths, what is our work preference. Am I somebody that prefers process and systems over people? Like what is my preference? How do I prefer to work? And then knowing all of that, being able to then engineer that into, so then what is going to be my primary role? Like what is going to be most important for me to be able to do my business effectively, utilizing my strengths, because there shouldn't be so much tension. I think sometimes we force ourselves to do things that are out of our comfort zone, like way out of our comfort zone. Of course, prospecting is not going to be comfortable for everybody.
Nobody wants to do prospecting.
Right? Oh, but even in that, it's like, okay, great. So then if you are deathly afraid of getting on the phone, then what else can you do to create FaceTime? Are you better in group environments where it's networking? Awesome. Well, that's still FaceTime. So it's just about redirecting yourself in areas of your business where you are going to be using your strengths to the maximum potential and where you're going to feel fulfilled and happy because it comes naturally to you. So, I'm always big about purpose driven and looking at what are we passionate about? What are those, one of the questions I like to ask people is, what would your 8-year-old self be disappointed to know about you today? Like what dreams at 8 years old did you have that you were like, I'm going to do this and I'm going to be this and this is what I want to do? What would they be disappointed to know that you've let go of? Because that's a really good starting point to figure out, what kind of passion projects could I be doing that will help me feel more fulfilled and happy? Because here's the other piece to the puzzle. You can't expect one basket to fill everything in your life. Your relationships are not going to be the be all end all of making you happy in life. Your work is not going to be the be all end all of making you happy in life. So it's from different baskets, different areas. And so sometimes if you're feeling, and I have this conversation a lot with people, I love what I do, but I just feel like drained and I'm just not feeling invigorated anymore. It's like, okay, so then what are you doing to fuel yourself? Maybe it's a passion project. Maybe
talk to me about that, because I know that when you go to your website, you've got your passion project and part of the blog and the group, and share more a little about that as well. I think that's an important point. There is like you've got to almost tune out sometimes to tune back in.
Yes.
But you're not tuning out and like going to sleep or like putting a bag over your head. It's like, just go over here now.
Yeah. So here's the truth, and here's sort of what it means for me. I can only kind of relate in that perspective. I am not an extrovert. Can I get up on stage and deliver a talk? Absolutely. Can I be in front of people? Absolutely. Do I feel energized after that? No. Oh. I'm drained. And so that's the difference between introversion and extroversion. It has nothing to do with outgoing and reserved. It has to do with where do we collect our energy. And so I love being around people, but after a certain point, it takes a lot out of me. So my preference, where I get my energy from, is coming back and being more reserved. And so what do I do in my day to make sure that I'm refueling myself? Is it reading a book? Is it just taking some quiet time? Is it going for a walk? Not that I love exercise, but another admission there of guilt.
It's okay. No, don't worry. This is just you and me. Wink,
right,
wink.
Right. No one's going to know that. But what is it that, writing for me is an outlet, and it's also where I get energized from, because I'm a very creative person. And if I don't have an outlet for that, I get all like overwhelmed in my brain. And so it's just about knowing, again, coming back to knowing yourself. And so your passion projects are just things that that fuel you. I love being able to help and inspire people. And so that very early passion project that I have on my website is a social media account that I've created called The Fabric of Our Soul. I think it's 8 years old now. I can't even tell you when I'm sure it's about 8 years old. But it literally just started out of I love inspirational quotes. I love reading things that get me to think. And so I started just sharing them. And the more I shared it, the more responses I was getting from people. And I realized, wow, all I'm doing is fueling what I need, and I'm just sharing it with other people. But here's the huge impact that that's having on people. Yeah. And I'm telling you, the messages I would get from people, I had no idea. I mean, they're across the world.
Yep.
Beauty of social media, right? And they would be messaging me, saying, oh my God, I needed to hear that today. Like, I don't know what, I don't know. You're in my mind. That's what I would like. Oh my God, it's like you're in my mind. You keep posting these things. And so
cool.
it's just those passion projects are as much about us as it is other people. Sometimes it's our work. Like I've got, I work with a ton of realtors, obviously between the two brokerages and just in the industry itself. Yep. And I love when I meet realtors that say their passion project is real estate. It's like, oh my God, you've just found the perfect,
so cool.
Yeah, like it's perfect. But it's not like that for everybody. And so it's just knowing that about yourself, being honest about yourself, and just kind of taking it from there. Like, what can I do that's going to fuel me?
You had mentioned something in previous conversation around being in alignment with our vision and our strengths. And I think that you just really you've given, I mean, I guess I'm almost throwing that in after the fact, because you've kind of just outlined what that looks like, right? Is really understanding, again, what are your non-negotiables in life? What are the things you're really working towards? What do you ultimately want, right? And so we've got this, and I don't want to just isolate this to people that are just getting in the business, right? Where we've got this vision about what real estate could be, should be, is.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden it's like, well, what do you though? And I think the lifestyle entrepreneur really comes back to, no. Forget about what the business is. What do you want? Where are your strengths in this business? What do you really see for yourself?
Yeah.
And then how are you going to operate in this business to be able to paint that perfect picture? And I think one of your passion projects are also actually painting, is it not?
I haven't done it in a while. Yes, okay, it is. You're right. I haven't done that in a while since I've taken up podcasting.
Okay, yeah,
kind of
trust me, I get how that one goes.
You know what? I also call myself a creative dabbler. So I dabble in a lot of creative things. Yep. I don't just stick with one thing. It makes me look a little bit erratic sometimes, but I'm okay with that. But I'm a dabbler of sorts.
Accomplished.
But yes,
right?
Yes. When I get my fill, it's like, okay, I'm good now. On to the next.
I love the way you had phrased it to me when you said, so essentially mindshare is built when we work in alignment with our vision, our strengths, and our purpose. I went, I like that. Mindshare. I really like that.
So here's you talk a lot about mindshare. Absolutely. It's your thing.
Absolutely.
And so how do you build mindshare in the minds of the people that you're working with?
Yeah.
Get outside of the business for a second.
Right.
When you come across people that are just happy and they love what they're doing because they're magnetic. Their energy is contagious, and you kind of just want to always be around that. You can tell when people are doing things because it makes them feel good and because it really truly is in alignment with their gifts, their strengths, their talents. And so if we could all, imagine we could all do that. I know I wear rose-colored glasses. I get that. And I'm okay with that. I like the world pink, but if we could all do that, just imagine the impact we would have on people. I mean, we get into this business, yes, for ourselves, but you have to love people to do it. Yeah. You have to have and one of the underlying things that I find, that common thread with a lot of real estate professionals, is when you say, why did you get into the business? It's because I want to help people. That is probably at the top 3 of the responses. And so if you
do you get that a lot from realtors? They want to help people. Is that, well, that's, I do. You know what? It's a nice, actually very breathtaking thing to hear.
And I don't know, I mean, we can talk about law of attraction. We can talk about all that. Mm-hmm. I don't know if it's just that I gravitate to people and people gravitate to me who are not transactionally mindset. Mm-hmm. Like they're very much in it because they want to serve their business and people as much as it serves them. And so I don't know if that's just a natural, that's who I gravitate to and who gravitates to me. But I like to believe that there are a good portion of really true, genuine professionals in our industry that are here for the right reasons. I shouldn't say that because it's not about a wrong reason. It's are here for the reasons of helping people. Of really taking seriously what they're able to do. This is, I know we hear it all the time, this is the biggest asset.
Yeah.
Okay, it's just a word until you really understand what that means. People don't buy 4 walls. They buy a lifestyle, a dream. And so that's another huge alignment piece with lifestyle entrepreneurship in real estate is we don't sell homes, we sell lifestyles. people don't buy that house because it's got pretty four walls. They buy it because it's in a school district that's going to allow their kids to go off into the school that they want. And then that builds right into the dreams that they have for their children. It's the park that they envision themselves walking through. So it's very lifestyle driven. And so I think that there's a lot of great people in our industry that are in it because that's what they want. They want to be able to help people build that lifestyle dream of theirs.
I'm going to say, I mean, you just said maybe not the wrong reason, but I am going to sort of be a little bit more forward.
Well, you're more bold than I am.
Well, but I'm saying, like, I'm going to say it. Like, I think that the right reason is to come in and help people. I mean, that's that's what we do in this industry, right? We help people buy and sell houses, homes, lifestyles.
Yeah.
We're not there to just do a deal. We're not there to take pen and put it to paper and go, I just made a big fat commission check. I'm going to go on vacation for the next month.
Well, and listen, but it's not, because again, if it was slowly profit you were after, you could do that with or without people. Like it doesn't, you can build something online, but I don't want to discount that is important to people.
Of course it is.
Because it is, and maybe some people aren't at the awareness level yet that they're actually seeing that exchange of energy between them and the people that they serve, and that really is what keeps them going. They might not just be aware of that. But yeah, I mean, you're more bold to put it.
But I'm going to say it because I think, look,
I agree.
I think this, when you talk about law of attraction, I believe in all that stuff. I believe if you're going to go out and help people, there's the power of reciprocity. People will come back and help you.
Yep.
Right. And so the more you help people, which is one of the things I write in my gratitude journal every night, I write in my intention setting every morning, is I want to help more people today. Right. Yep. I want to help you achieve what it is you are looking to achieve.
Yep.
That in its own is what brings on, in my belief, is what brings on a lot of our own successes, is when we are not out there going, what can you do for me? What can you do for me? What can I do for you?
Yeah,
how can I help
to get
you?
Mentality.
It's got to be give, and maybe you might possibly get, but you cannot stop giving if you don't get.
Yeah.
And the more you truly believe it and live it and create a lifestyle around it, I believe strongly, and I might even say from my own shoes, that's where a lot of success will come from. And that's where the fun part of success will come from. So, I mean, when people are getting into this business, and as I was saying a moment ago, we're not isolating it to just people that have, that are just getting in, but people who are in it.
Mm-hmm.
What are they experiencing now that they're in? When you talk about, the fact that they're not, or maybe the mindset may or may not be there. The plan may or may not be there. Are people treating it like a business? And we've talked sort of some of that. You're in it now.
Yeah. So I think the challenge that a lot of solopreneurs, real estate entrepreneurs are facing right now is that, when you first start out in the business, you're full of dreams, you're full of ambition and excitement and energy. And, blessed are you if you're in this business still 20 years later, which there are a lot of people that are in this business still 20 years, 30 years later. Mm-hmm. I think what happens is we're not trained to look at this as a business. We're looking at it as this is I don't want to use the word job, but it is. It's like we don't come in and structure it the way we would if we were opening up a storefront business. So
and we need to, though, don't we?
We do, because here's the other thing. If you're going to be able to enjoy time freedom, you have to be able to have systems and structures in place in your business. It has to run clockwork. It has to be able to continue to run. There's got to be mechanisms in place for you to be able to step away from your business so it's not going to crash and burn. And so we're not trained, unless you've gone and you've gotten a business degree and you understand that. Again, we're getting a lot of people in the industry that are coming from teaching backgrounds, accounting backgrounds, never necessarily have ever had their own business, to know what are some of those mechanisms that we do have to look at. How do we actually look at this as a business? And so we have to be able to impose those systems and structures and really treat it like a business, meaning even our time, even our role. I know, there's no shortage of coaches out there in the industry that will use the questioning, would you hire yourself? If you were, would you hire yourself today, knowing what you've done all day? Mm-hmm. And so it is about looking at it as a business. And I think that it's something that we have to be able to start doing more of if we're going to be able to see that time freedom, if we're going to be able to enjoy the lifestyles that we really want, and if we're going to be able to create a successful business. Because at the end of the day, it is a business.
It totally is a business. And,
Yeah.
and I think that, again, for anybody maybe just tuning in, or just to reiterate this, and I really want to drive this home, when we talk about a lifestyle entrepreneur and we think to ourselves that we are running our own business, AKA entrepreneur,
Mm-hmm.
it's now again back to lifestyle and how you manage that time, how you run your processes throughout a day. Exactly what you just said. Would you hire yourself? Are you working hard enough? I mean, I've broken down the whole AMH theorem, the audience marketing hustle, to kind of lay out your marketing plan, right?
Mm-hmm.
What are you doing out there every day to go out and build more mind share? And
Yeah.
it's, who is that audience you're talking to? Marketing wise, what channels are you using to talk to them? How much are you spending on that stuff? Have you created a budget, or are you just running by the seat of your pants? Because that's not running a business properly. And then,
No.
of course, the hustle part of it. What are you actually doing? As we said, everybody hates prospecting,
Yeah.
right? But that's where, again, time management and really structuring yourself for what you want in life is so fundamental to success.
Yeah. I mean, you wouldn't go open up a shoe store without
No.
knowing who your target audience is, what the cost of your product is, what's
Right.
going to be your markup, what are your business hours, who are you serving, who's going to be your suppliers, what about your employees? I mean, you would have a business plan. Chances are you'd probably be being funded by a loan of some sort, so you'd have to produce some sort of business plan. Like, all of these things, if we were in a storefront business, would naturally come out. There's just no other way to operate. But we don't have those structures or imposed structures in place. And I know that's very contradictory to where we started, because we said, you come into the business for freedom and flexibility,
Mm-hmm.
but that doesn't mean you can just fly by the seat of your pants. You have to impose the structure that's not already there so that you can then enjoy that freedom and flexibility. It's not just something you can come in and kind of just navigate, float around and do what you want to do. I mean, you can, if it
You
works for
can,
you.
but you're
Sure.
kind of the chaotic realtor, let's call it, right? I
Yeah,
mean, just
well,
that's the way
it's
I
not
claim it.
scalable, and I think that's kind of where your question was starting off from, was for the people that are in the industry right now, how do they scale their business to grow? How do they scale their business to maybe be able to step away, change their role a little bit? And so you can't scale a business unless it is systematized. Because you have to have process in place that if I said, David, I'm going to step away from my role, this was what I was doing, this is what I want to do now, and we kind of had that conversation, you
Mm-hmm.
and I, this is what I want my
Mm-hmm.
role to
Mm-hmm.
look like. Well, I've got to understand all of the mechanisms and the day-to-day processes and procedures that I was doing to be able to now have somebody come in and fill that role for me. And so just to build a scalable business you have to start looking at it from a business perspective. And it's just not something that we're taught. Entrepreneurship is not something we're taught, unless you've gone to school for it.
No, exactly. And I mean, it is something that almost you've got to have some sort of natural ability for, or you need to have serious structure for. Take on a coach, have somebody help you work through that, right? But this also takes us into that whole thing around professionalism, right? In
Yeah.
the industry, sort of altogether, how we run our day, how we run our business, how we operate for ourselves, and then how we deal with others, how we communicate with others. What do we bring to the table here? And I mean, that idea around I guess, do you find that there's a lack of professionalism in this industry?
No.
Jeez, I almost believed you there.
I think there's a lack of professionalism in every industry.
I do
But
agree with that.
I think that the nature and the landscape of real estate lends itself to us being able to take advantage of certain situations, and that does lend itself to not having the amount of professionalism that we need. I mean, you and I had a conversation about, the comments that we hear from realtors that are talking about board fees or licensing fees and
Mm-hmm.
how long it takes to get your license, and you just wouldn't hear that from a lawyer or an accountant.
Yeah, that
You
was a great point when you brought that one up. And just for everybody there,
Yeah.
a little more context on that, I had mentioned to the fact that I had seen, different posts in different groups around people complaining about how much it costs to get a real estate license, how long it takes to get a real estate license. And I know when I brought that up to you, you were like, so do people complain about, becoming a lawyer or a doctor? And I was like,
It would actually minimize if you knew your lawyer only took a year, total schooling to get their law degree.
Scary.
It wouldn't, that
scary, but
bar, yeah, but that bar wouldn't be where it is. And I think that, I'm stuck in the middle of being able to make it accessible for people. I think accessibility to be able to get your license is a big factor. I
Yeah.
think that's one of the benefits of working in real estate.
Do you think
But
it's easy, or you think it's hard when you talk
I
about
think it
accessibility?
should be harder.
Okay,
I think it should be harder. I
I
think it
agree.
should be longer. I think it should be more in depth. I think there should be an apprentice, period in there. I think there's a lot of things that the industry can do, but at the end of the day, if that's going to be where it's going to go, it has to start with us. If we can't start individually treating this like a profession and acting professional and looking at our business in a professional way, then why would we expect the industry to be any different? We are the industry. We make up collectively the industry. And so I think, I toggle with, it's great that it's accessible to get your license. I think it's important. There's a lot of people who have been able to support their families, and this is the way they've been able to do it. I mean, it is a wonderful industry. We are very blessed to have this industry. I just think it's been compromised a little bit with people not taking it seriously. And so I think, the quick solution to that is, could we make the licensing longer, more difficult to get? Could there be more testing, in place? Can there be an apprentice period where
I
we can
love that. Yep.
practice? So there's a lot of, and this is no new ideas for me, right? This is stuff that we've talked around tables for years and years and years. But I do think that the way we are loosey-goosey in our industry lends itself to the lack of professionalism. I think it's easy to be unprofessional.
I agree with that, and I think, again, and I mean, this is wonderful, because we've really started off on the idea of getting into the business and understanding what you personally want out of the business, what you want out of life, understanding, again, what your visions are, what your strengths are, what that lifestyle is that you want. We've sort of gone down this road now of, you're in the business, and part of this does come back to professionalism and how we put ourselves out there. And again, I believe strongly that, perception is real, right? And I mean, we, unfortunately, these days, because of, again, these silly little things called smartphones, we don't have as much time as we used to have in the past. And yes, I agree with you. Manage your time accordingly, schedule in the calendar.
But we're all overscheduled.
But we really are. We totally are. Hence why I'm up till like 1:30 every morning, right? But we are overscheduled, and we don't realize the time we take sometimes to get ourselves lost in technology for a couple moments. So with that, you look at the fact that we haven't got enough time to almost look and necessarily weigh all the options, or really make a proper, create a proper image of what we've seen of people, or that right perception. But again, perception being real, and how fast people move, you really want to think through, how are you operating? What are people seeing from you? What are they perceiving of you, so that you can build the right mind share, put yourself in the right place at the right time when that time comes, right? So we've kind of gone from like the getting in to sort of what we should be doing during. Now, talk to me about this. When we talk about, and again, we brought up the old school, new school, or the, what did you call it?
Proven, unproven.
Yes, proven, unproven, the nice way to say it. What do we believe? And I know we've talked, again, old school, new school is what can the seasoned veterans do to remain relevant, and how can even the sort of newer breed remain relevant? And I mean, we're talking, everybody wants to go out there and win, right? But we are now facing things like, and I know everybody loves this topic, iBuying, AI, bots and all that stuff. Like that is definitely, I mean, back to like first question of like, what is going on with the industry and what kind of changes are happening?
Huge.
Tech has been a big one. Here's a massive part of technology, and I'm going to say it. This part's not going away when we come to AI. Like, the tech's only going to get smarter.
Yeah,
right?
It
But
is.
what can people do to remain relevant in this business?
I think we're at a really vulnerable time in our industry where we have, again, that lack of professionalism, or our inability, unwillingness to really treat this as a profession has left us vulnerable to outside industries being able to come in and try to replace the realtor. And I know that's a big topic of conversation.
Absolutely.
Because it lends itself, again, here's our identity crisis in our industry: is who are we? What are we going to be, tomorrow? And what are we going to be 10 years from now? What is that going to look like? I don't think that technology will ever replace the realtor. And here's why. AI is smart, bots are smart, they can all do processes. That is not a secret. And if we use it right, it will help us to enable us to be able to seek that time freedom. We no longer have to drive an hour to get something signed. We can DocuSign it or e-sign it off. And so, this disruptive technology is there to help enable us if we allow it and if we use it right. What's happening though is if we allow it to completely take over, then certainly we're going to be replaceable. What AI and bots cannot do is replace the relationship piece. They can try and mimic.
Right.
It can try and mimic. Absolutely. You can go online and do a chat with somebody on a computer, and it's a bot, and they've trained it through AI to be able to respond like you. But the human connection piece can never be replaced by a robot. It can never be replaced by artificial intelligence. And so it's about understanding that, identifying first where you're not comfortable with technology. It's not going away. It's there to help serve our business. Don't, what is the quote? Don't try and eat the whole elephant. It's like, you're not going to try and tackle the whole thing at once. Don't try and all of a sudden automate your business completely, because it's not going to work. Choose one thing that will help you save time and make you money. Those are always my two questions. I think so I run two Facebook groups. One is geared Queen Bees of Real Estate, and another one is for the podcast. And so one of the questions I posed in one of the Facebook groups was, I have a million apps on my phone. I can scroll 4 or 5 times through before I get through them, and they're not all relevant. And so I think we have to start looking at things in terms of, does it save me time, and will it make me money? Will it help me do my job, and will it save me time? Are sort of those two evaluating questions to kind of look at things from. And so from a seasoned realtor who might not be as comfortable adapting to technology, what's one thing that you would like to have automated so that you don't have to do it anymore? Would that afford you the freedom? I think the motivation to want to change has to be there. Absolutely. And unless you feel that motivation and understand what is it going to do for you, truly big picture, it's not about replacing you, because I think there's a fear factor there. Anybody can learn how to use the technology. It's about identifying which ones are going to be the right ones for you. And then for the new school of, people where we're seeing them wanting just to do everything online, there's a lot to learn from the proven ways of doing business, and that is get in front of people. It's relationships. If you don't want to be replaced by AI, then start getting in front of people and building and nurturing relationships, because that piece can't be replaced. That is the essence of our business. That's actually the true distinction of real estate versus every other industry, is that it's people driven. We need people, we need relationships. However that looks, however you want to manage that is up to you. The tools are there, but it has to be people first.
I love that answer. I think that it's so important that everybody understands it is a relationship business. And I know we harp on it. I know we say it. I know the likes of us who get on a stage and preach it all the time and everything else. I get it. We're not the first people to say it. And it's not rocket science.
No.
But everybody's really got to drive that into their brains, really understand that when it comes to the tech. One thing you hit on there is am I motivated to want to use it? What is it? And will it save me time, and will it make me money? And one thing that I run into a lot is that agents will go out and spend money to save themselves time without planning for the support on what they're spending on and putting the right pieces in place for, again, what they spent on. And it's easy to go, well, I spent it and so-and-so is going to do it for me. But are they really? How much time is involved from you to make that happen each day, week, month, if any at all? How much involvement have you got? What is it going to run you? And cost you. And now that you've spent the money on it, when you look back to how much you have to pay as a bill, because there's going to be a bill for that. Let's just go brass tacks here. How much more money do you actually have to make out there working to bring that in? Let's talk about taxes, right? Taxes are real. So it's you got to go, you've got to go out and make more money though, than you've just spent to save yourself time. Right. And I'm not saying
backwards. It's a little backwards.
I'm not saying don't do it, but my advice to everybody is, again, this comes back to where I said to AMH, it's figure out your marketing budget, figure out how much money you actually have there, because otherwise you could find yourself going, I'm going to bring this on, bring that on, bring that on. I'm totally motivated to do it. I'm going to spend the money on it. but we haven't really thought through the ROI and the length of time, the amount of work, and how much we're really going to have to make in order to pay for all that stuff.
Well, and here's the trap, because there's potholes everywhere, and it's about being able to identify what those potholes are so that you can walk around them instead of walk through them. And so one of the potholes is understanding that as humans, our behavior is driven by a number of different mechanisms, but one of them being that law of consistency. So it's been shown, the psychology of influence, the psychology of how human behavior operates is, if I'm going to go spend $2,000 on a marketing program without giving it much thought as to, is it going to save me time? How is this going to help me make me money and do my job well? And is it actually really, truly beneficial to my business? Because we're very easy to get sold on things that have the promise of giving us this time freedom or financial freedom. Well, what happens is when we commit to that $2,000 marketing program without really understanding what it's going to do, if it's going to really do what it's supposed to do, that law of consistency comes in, and humans do not like to be inconsistent. So we will now either convince ourselves that this is the right way to do it because we've invested that money and we have to be consistent. Now we have to look consistent, or we find ways of justifying that this is going to work for us. And then we lose sight of the fact that we've now taken our eye off of the road. The pothole's right there. You're going to step right in it because you've been now swayed and are now focused on this consistency. Like, I've committed to this, now I can't look bad. I've got to be able to make this work, or I'm going to try and make it work. And so we see this. I see this often. I'm sure you see it as well, where we are like, ooh, shiny object, ooh, squirrel, oh, this might work, oh, this might work. And so, I talk about being a creative dabbler, taking that personality, that sort of behavior, and imposing it in business where it matters. I mean, it doesn't matter if I paint today and don't paint again for another 6 months. It's not my livelihood. But when it's your livelihood, you can't dabble. You have to be clear on your vision. You have to know what your purpose is behind it. What is the why? What is it going to do before you financially commit? Because once you make that commitment, we don't want to look bad. And we'll do whatever we have to do to make it look as though it's working. And then we've just taken ourselves off course.
It's interesting. Sorry, I like to write notes. It's interesting that you bring up consistency. That's exactly when I'm in Niagara for the Aurea Reality Conference in a couple weeks, which everybody should be checking out for sure. I will be talking on the topic of consistency. Mm-hmm. And I mean, that's the whole presentation right there. Yeah. So that's going to be an interesting one. But just before we're signing off here, you mentioned about your podcast. We've got the Lifestyle Entrepreneur podcast. I want to have everybody who is watching and tuning in and listening to this on any of their favorite podcast platforms, tell us quickly, or I guess you've just told us all about sort of the overall, what the Lifestyle Entrepreneur is all about.
Yeah.
I want people to start listening and tuning into your podcast.
Thank you, David. I appreciate it. The podcast is really, if you've ever asked yourself the question of when will I ever see balance between my work and my life? How do I get my business started? How do I feel more fulfilled in what I do? How do I manage the changes? It really is a lens. Like I use lifestyle entrepreneurship as a lens to view our business from, which means then if we're looking at it that way, there is no separation between work and life. Who we are in our personal lives affects our business and vice versa. And so the podcast is not a specific topic. It is about marketing and how to do that effectively. It is about how to monitor your business really simply. How do you look at it and diagnose to see what has to change in order to get to where you want to go? How do you build out a purpose-driven business? How do you find your purpose and passion? Like, it talks about everything. I've had parenting experts on there. I've had health professionals on there because it all matters. Everything that we do in our lives matters in our business because we are the business. It doesn't mean we have to be victims to our business, which, then brings in the whole business mindset of scalability and implementing systems. And we don't want to be trapped in our business where we can't step away from it. But there's an understanding there that everything that we do influences our business. If we're fighting at home and we're having poor relationships around, we're not going to be effective in our business. It's going to trickle itself in. And so how do you support it's really a holistic way of looking at your business, is by taking into account what things impact our life. Is that work life? I don't like the word balance. I use harmony. So work life harmony. How do you achieve that? It's all very mindset driven. So the topics are very varied, very varied. It really just, it speaks to the challenges of people who really want to find more purpose in what they do and be able to understand that they do want a life outside of their business, and how can that business serve them as much as they serve it.
I absolutely love it. I am so excited for you. I love the fact that you got the podcast going up and running. I know, working in the background together, sort of helping, just lending and throwing help out there to the world, right? It always circles back in good ways. And that's part of what we do out there on a regular. Just as we sign off, have you got any last words of inspiration, anything you want to share with people? Tell people, where can they find you, contact information?
Yeah, so my website is michellerisi.com. From there, there's links to find me on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter. I have, if you're a female in real estate, a woman in real estate, I have a Facebook group called Queen Bees of Real Estate. And the point of that group is to create an environment that supports empowerment. And what does that actually mean? And so we talk about some of these things that women in real estate face, because their roles and responsibilities in their life are different. And so, it's an environment of support, and that's really the vision for that. And how do we really empower one another and work together? So we're not just working as a solo queen bee. This is my business, and I'm going to go about doing it. It's how can we work together to support one another? And so that's what that group is for. And then, of course, the podcast, which is found on all of the major platforms.
And I encourage everybody to go and check that out. Once again, another amazing guest here on the Mindshare podcast. Michelle, thank you so much for making the time today. Really, as always, enjoyed our conversation together.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
You're either listening to this on iTunes, iHeartRadio, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, or Spotify. Or maybe you went to industrysyndicate.com. Maybe you downloaded our free Industry Syndicate podcast app. Or maybe you went to my website, mindshare101.com. Wherever you like to consume your content, please rate, review, and subscribe. And if you haven't yet, connect with me on Facebook at Mindshare101 and on Instagram at DavidGreenspan101. This has been another episode of the Mindshare Podcast. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in.